Imagine waking up with nothing but the forest around you, the cool mist clinging to every leaf, and the first light of dawn spilling through the canopy like a promise. In that quiet moment, the world feels both ancient and brand new, and you become part of a rhythm that has guided our ancestors for countless generations. By sunset, you will have gathered food, crafted tools, and cooked a meal using only what the earth provides, and I'm going to walk you through every step of that day. The forest at sunrise is generous if you know how to listen. The creek sings a soft melody, the birds call out their territories, and the ground is still damp with night's dew. I start by moving along the water's edge, hand brushing low foliage, eyes scanning for the subtle signs of edible life. The first rule of safe foraging is to never eat anything unless you can positively identify it. The second rule is to harvest responsibly, taking only what you need and leaving enough for the ecosystem to thrive. The third rule is to always test for any adverse reactions, even with plants that are widely known to be safe. One of the first treasures I look for is the bright green leaf of the wild nettle, its tiny hairs ready to sting if you're careless. I gently pull a handful, then soak it in cool water to neutralize the sting, a technique our ancestors discovered long before modern chemistry. Next, I spot a patch of young dandelion leaves, their bitter flavor perfect for a fresh salad when paired with a drizzle of pine resin oil. The pine resin is collected by scraping the bark of a mature pine, then heating it over a small fire until it becomes a golden, viscous liquid that adds both flavor and nutrition. Further along the trail, I find a cluster of wild strawberries, their ruby hue a reminder that sweetness still exists in the wild. I pick only the ripe ones, leaving the unripe to mature and the plant to continue its cycle. Beneath a fallen log, I discover a stand of fiddlehead ferns, tightly coiled like a secret waiting to be revealed. These young shoots are a staple fare for many indigenous peoples, and after a quick rinse, they become a delicate, nutty addition to the evening stew. While I gather, I also keep an eye on the materials that will become my tools. A sturdy branch, freshly snapped from a young sapling, will serve as the handle for a primitive knife. I split a piece of flint from a riverbank, striking it against a harder stone to create a sharp edge. The process is slow and deliberate, each spark a reminder of the fire that once lit the night for our forebears. I then bind the flint to the wooden handle using strips of bark, twisted together with a simple cordage made from the inner fibers of a cattail stem. The result is a functional cutting tool, rough but reliable, ready to slice through the foraged bounty. As the sun climbs higher, the forest's bounty becomes more apparent. I pause to taste a leaf of lamb's quarters, its mild flavor a perfect complement to the nettle's earthiness. I gather a handful of pine needles, not for food, but for their antiseptic properties, later to be used in a poultice for any minor cuts. Each plant, each piece of wood, each stone is a lesson in respect and resourcefulness, a dialogue between human hands and the wild. Now that the morning harvest is complete, I set up a simple workstation on a flat stone, arranging my finds in a deliberate pattern. The tools I have crafted will soon be put to use, turning raw ingredients into nourishment. The fire I will build later will be the heart of the day, a place where the forest's gifts are transformed into sustenance. As the shadows lengthen and the day moves toward afternoon, I feel the pulse of the wilderness syncing with my own. If this is blowing your mind, hit that subscribe button and let's keep exploring together. The afternoon sun begins to tilt, casting long shadows that dance across the forest floor, and I feel the subtle shift in temperature that signals it's time to turn my attention to fire. I gather a handful of dry tinder birch bark, shredded cattail leaves, and a few pine needles that have fallen and dried in the shade. With the flint I split earlier, I strike a spark onto the tinder, watching the tiny ember catch and grow. The crackle of the first flame is a reminder of how our ancestors coaxed warmth from stone and wood, and I let the fire breathe, feeding it slowly with small twigs until a steady glow forms. While the fire builds, I turn back to the tools I've crafted. The primitive knife, though rough around the edges, is already proving its worth. I use it to shave thin strips from a flexible willow branch, twisting them together to form a simple cordage that will hold my future shelter together. The fibers slide through my fingers like silk, and I can't help but marvel at how nature provides everything we need if we only learn to listen. I also shape a second piece of flint into a small scraper, useful for cleaning fish scales or removing bark from a piece of wood I plan to fashion into a bowl. With the fire now roaring, I set a flat stone near the base to serve as a makeshift cooking surface. I arrange the foraged greens, young nettles, lamb's quarters, and a handful of fiddlehead ferns on the stone, letting the heat wilt their leaves and release their earthy aromas. The scent mingles with the smoky perfume of the fire, creating a perfume that feels both ancient and immediate. I then slice a few wild mushrooms I found near the damp moss, their caps glistening with dew, and add them to the pan. The primitive knife makes quick work of the delicate tissue, and the mushrooms begin to soften, their flavor deepening with each passing minute. As the vegetables simmer, I turn my attention to the protein component of the meal. Earlier in the morning, I had spotted a small stream where a family of trout darted beneath the surface. I returned with a simple handcrafted spear, fashioned from a sturdy sapling sharpened at one end with the flint scraper. The spear glides through the water with a quiet confidence, and I managed to catch a modest-sized trout. I clean the fish on the spot, using the knife to remove the scales and gut it carefully, treating the flesh with the same respect I afford the plants. Now the fire is ready for the final stage. I lay the trout on a broad leaf, drizzle a few drops of pine resin for a hint of sweetness, and place it atop the hot stone. The fish sizzles, its skin turning a golden hue, and the aroma of cooked fish mingles with the herbal perfume of the vegetables. I cover the stone with a larger leaf, creating a natural oven that traps steam and heat, allowing the flavors to meld together. While the stew simmers, I gather a few more pine needles, not for food, but to craft a simple poultice that I will keep on hand for any minor cuts that may arise later in the day. The forest around me hums with life, the distant call of a hawk, the rustle of small mammals in the underbrush, the gentle babble of the creek that fed the trout. I take a moment to sit back against a moss-covered log, feeling the coolness of the stone beneath my hands, and reflect on the rhythm of the day. The act of gathering, crafting, and cooking has become a meditation, each step a dialogue with the land that sustains us. I think about the countless generations before us who walked these same paths, who learned to read the signs of the forest, and who trusted their hands to shape tools from raw material. As the stew reaches its final stage, the vegetables are tender, the fish flakes easily, and the broth is rich with the combined essence of earth, water, and fire. I ladle the steaming mixture into a shallow bowl I carved from a piece of softwood, its surface smoothed with the back of my knife. The first bite is a revelation, a burst of fresh, wild flavor that feels both primal and nourishing. The nettles add a subtle peppery bite, the fiddleheads contribute a nutty undertone, and the trout provides a buttery richness that ties everything together. I pause, savoring the moment, and feel a deep sense of gratitude for the gifts the forest has offered. Now that the day is winding down, the fire begins to settle into glowing embers, and the sky turns a deep indigo speckled with stars. I gather the remaining tinder and carefully extinguish the flames, ensuring the night remains safe for the creatures that call this place home. I coil the cordage I made earlier into a neat bundle, ready to be used for a shelter I plan to construct tomorrow. The primitive knife rests against the stone, its edge still sharp, a testament to the simple yet powerful tools we can create with our own hands. Before I head back to my modest camp, I take a final look around, feeling the pulse of the wilderness sync with my own heartbeat. The day has been a full circle of learning, creating, and honoring the natural world. I hope you felt that same connection as you watched each step unfold. If you've ever wondered how to start a fire with just flint, or which wild greens are safe to eat, let me know in the comments below. Share your own experiences, or ask any questions you have about foraging or primitive tool making. I love hearing from you and learning together. If this journey resonated with you, give the video a thumbs up and consider sharing it with anyone who might be curious about living closer to the land. Your support helps keep these explorations alive and inspires more people to step outside and discover the skills that have sustained humanity for millennia. Thank you for joining me on this day of ancestral living, and I look forward to our next adventure together.